Mama always said Science Talk Radio was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Welcome to Fudge the Data.
Science will save the day. Science, let's shout hooray! The world gets better every day because of science! Science!
Last week, we had an episode all about running.
Running. Oh yeah, we should tell them about our run that we won.
Yes,
we won the whole race.
Yeah, we won first place. We both came
we got
in
the
first.
medals to show it.
Yeah. Yes, we got medals. So we obviously both came in first place.
Such
It was pretty cool.
Such a great day for a run. It was a great experience for sure.
It was a lot of fun. I think I came in like 160th something.
We were definitely in the top 25 to 30%. So
Hopefully.
it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
So we did that, and now we're here with a new episode, a brand spanking new episode.
Yeah, we're kind of excited about this one because we know a lot about this topic.
Hopefully. And really hopefully, because we were going to do a show about digestion today in honor of Thanksgiving, but then we realized today that we don't really know that much about it as of right now, so we were like, well, what do we actually know a lot about? So we're doing it about smell.
And how do we smell, and what do we smell, and how do different insects and animals smell? We kind of, in our lab, we study smells and how organisms smell things, insects in specific. So we thought about talking about smelling, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, a lot of our research is based around smell, so it's really it's pretty cool that we get to have a nice little chat about it.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a real Fudge the Data because when I was supposed to be doing research about it, because we just changed the topic today, I fell asleep while watching Mad Men. So this is going to be off the top of my head. I have some sparse notes, but we'll see how smart we actually are today.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's start with a little bit of a breakdown of how smelling happens. We'll give an outline of the smells. Before you actually smell a chocolate bar, you smell anything, for example.
Chocolate bar is a good
The smell
example,
has to
though.
be made. An organism or a substance or whatever has to make a smell. And then the smell has to be transported to you via whatever air. If you're in a marine animal, the smell has to go through the air, so must be a transport mode. Water. And then after it gets transported to you, you must be able to detect it in order to smell it. So different organisms have different detection mechanisms. And after you detect it, there's something called transduction, or the chemical signal, that's the smell, gets transferred into an electrical signal or another kind of signal that goes to your brain, and your brain kind of decodes that message and make it a smell.
Yeah, make it what we would say is a smell.
An odor. So maybe you can say the difference between an odor and odorant. Yeah.
There's something you have to keep in mind with this, is that there's odorants, which are the things that we kind of think of as a smell. There's an odor.
Yes.
Odor, that's the thing that we think of as a smell. But this is actually just a big conglomerate of all the odorants that are in that odor. So an odorant is it's the single chemical compound, and those all combine into a nice little bouquet that gives you the smell that you're smelling.
Yeah.
So something like a plant is producing a whole whack load of chemicals. I think a rose produces
500, 400.
I think it was 300 or something like that. Probably more. Hell if I know. So a plant will produce a whole bunch of chemicals, and then we perceive that, and the odorants that we're able to actually detect are transferred to our brain, and those correlate to an odor that we smell, and that's how we think of as the smell of that plant, but it's actually a combination of a whole bunch of
different compounds at different concentrations too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we can say that plants are one of the main producers of smells or odors in the environment. They throughout their metabolic pathways, they keep releasing things into their environment. Their flowers release things into the environment as well. So different organisms produce smells intentionally or unintentionally for many, many different reasons. So say a flower, for example, a plant invests a lot of energy into producing floral compounds to attract pollinators. Or a certain animal might smell a certain way but doesn't mean it, but that can affect whatever. So there's many different ways an animal or a plant can produce smells.
Yeah, and something to think about as well is that the way something smells is often not intentional. It's often a byproduct of, say, metabolic pathways or something like that. The chemicals that are released that we perceive as an odor and that we've come to as a species recognize as another species are often again just breakdown products of other things within that other species.
Right. I wonder how subjective it is smelling something. You know, if I smell a rose, does everybody else smell the rose the same way? Or,
well, exactly. It's
it's pretty.
It's one of those things.
Even
just,
like seeing and
just
hearing.
like color. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you can't really describe a color because it's
It
red.
is
It's blue, and I could be seeing red or blue as completely different. That you have a blue hat on right now,
Oh,
and
nice
you're saying it's a red hat. Look, or you could say it's blue, but it would look like my red. And then you're just into the whole crazy. Oh, that's.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
You can't even describe it. It's impossible to really figure that kind of thing out. There's people out there that are doing it. Kudos to you, I'm sure.
Yeah. So smells are a big part of us as a species. Well, I think we can concentrate more on us as a species, not to divert too much into other animals, because we can talk forever about how important smell is to other animals and plants. But for us, I mean, we use colognes and deodorants on a daily basis, or for most of us at least. We smell food, we judge food by smell, we smell, everywhere we go, there's smells of everything, you know, there's, the table smells like wood or plastic or whatever,
so
smells are
microphone
huge.
Smells like old people's breath.
Yeah, like somebody's been talking on it for ages.
Yeah, speaking of, I don't know if people tuned in a bit early, but we could hear a bit of a Past 8 mixtape, so shout out to Jonathan Smith and his two buddies doing a great show on Tuesday evenings. You should watch that or listen to that. We had to do that because
they have such a good radio voice. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of different smells we encounter every day, and if we stop and decide if we stop at every single smell, we would be overwhelmed and wouldn't get to do anything. So I find it interesting how we can block certain smells and how we get used to certain smells just on our everyday walks.
The brain is able to, pick out smells that are really important because, like you say, there's a crazy abundance of chemicals in the atmosphere surrounding us right now. And any animal any plant or animal has to decipher which ones are actually important for it.
Yeah. So for almost all smells, or for a big majority of smells, are something that are called volatile compounds. And a volatile compound is something that's let's say just evaporates quickly.
Yeah,
okay? So
it's able to exist in the atmosphere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So plants produce a lot of volatile compounds. A lot of insects produce those as well. And it's been a bit debated if humans produce some kind of pheromone or anything like that. But we do produce a lot of compounds. There's a lot of smell. You just walk up to somebody and you can smell them. Exactly.
So we do produce a lot of smells. Anything produces a lot of volatile compounds.
I read an article earlier about that each human has his unique blend of smells, and that also depends a lot on the person's bacterial composition as well, their flora. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, everybody has a home smell. Your home always smells like you, and you can always tell when you go to somebody else's house. It's like, that's that smell. That's that person.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Yeah, and so anyways, a lot of organisms produce smells and everything. So a smell gets transferred for us humans by air. There's a wind current or a gust of wind, and those chemical compounds actually get carried into the air. And we've adapted to sniff, and sniffing is a very important thing for us because we're able to kind of zoom in, or how to say this? Just like you kind of use your own body to focus in on something that you find interesting. Exactly, like focus in on a smell. Yeah. And a lot of other animals can't do that. Like insects can't sniff. I actually thought about if insects can sniff or not. I don't believe so, because they just wave their antennae. But we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later. They're just picking up things in the atmosphere. Something like a fish. Now they don't sniff. But if you remember from class, they have a weird little, almost like a C-shaped hole that has an exit at either end of the C towards their head, and then they have a little plate that directs water into that C-shaped hole, where their olfactory, their smelling tools are. So any compounds in the water will pass over that set of tools, quote unquote, which we can discuss a bit later as well, and then out the other end. But it's not an actual sniff like we have. So it's We're pretty lucky to be able to sniff. I wouldn't.
Yeah, I know. To not have the sense of smell would be pretty sad, I would think.
And the sense of smell is one of the most primitive senses we have. It was, we're made of chemicals, and chemicals interacted with each other. To me, I see smell as us interacting with our environment in a very chemical way, not just like I'm smelling something. It's like we're part of what's happening, and what's happening is part of us. It's just a bunch of different chemicals.
Exactly, and chemical cues in the atmosphere from species from just the atmosphere. They've really driven a lot of evolution, which is fantastic because when you think about it, like, you have to be able to understand on some level what that smell is. So everything in the atmosphere has really driven evolution of how we behave towards that smell, which is quite incredible. Yeah,
and even sometimes certain smells modify the behavior of a lot of different organisms without the organism even knowing it, They might upregulate a certain pheromone or certain hormone in their body or whatever. So it's...
Yeah, we've mentioned the word pheromone a couple times. It's a pretty important word. Chemicals that are produced by species that are interpreted by other species are often called semiochemicals. So that's kind of the umbrella term for any compound in the atmosphere that's carrying a message.
So a semiochemical is any chemical that has a message. Carries a message.
So it's out there. And then, so semiochemicals, they're there, they have a message. There's two distinct branches of semiochemicals. There's ones that are intended for the same species that produced that chemical, and those are pheromones. Those are the ones that you think of like a sex pheromone.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty well understood thing just in general. I think a lot of people know what a pheromone is.
Yeah. Especially in insects, pheromones are a big thing.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying for like the listeners. If there are any. Hello. But yes, so pheromones are what's called intraspecific. There's species within that same species trying to communicate. Then there's also interspecific, which are a species that produces a compound, which is then interpreted by another compound. And these are called allelochemicals. So you have your semiochemicals, you have pheromones, and you have allelochemicals. And then within allelochemicals, there's three different types.
Right.
There's allomones, which benefit the sender of that chemical. So say something like, there's a cool example. There's this kind of orchid that
I've never heard of that one.
We may or may not have had a midterm today. There's an orchid that can produce a pheromone not a pheromone. They can produce an allomone that's almost identical to a wasp sex pheromone.
Right.
So it attracts this wasp. The wasp tries to mate with the orchid, and so pollinates it, but doesn't get any benefit from it.
Yeah, doesn't give him any food back.
Yeah. So that's an example of an allomone. There's happier ones. There's chiromones, and chiromones benefit the receiver. So that's like your basic predator-prey. That's a predator picking up on some chemical cue produced by a prey, so that it can then go and chow down.
Yeah, like an insect pest, for example, smelling your garden and coming and eating your vegetables and leaving.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that we look at a lot in the lab. That's one of the main things that we're looking at in trying to identify chemical compounds that are chiromones.
Exactly.
And then the third group is cinnamones, and these are the really happy ones. These are the nice ones. These are the ones, as the name would imply, cin. They're benefiting both the sender and the receiver.
Everybody leaves happy on that.
Yeah, so something like a real pollinator, where a flower is producing some kind of compound. Right. The wasp or the bee is picking that up, going to that leaf, getting food, pollinating, and everybody leaves happy.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so now if you walk around, there's thousands and thousands of different chemicals floating around in the air waiting for you to smell them. We probably don't smell everything around us. So there's an estimate that humans smell between, 4,000 and 400,000 different...
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. But it's
quite a wide range.
It's definitely on the lower end of that estimate, I would assume.
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of things that we don't smell that other species might smell, and there's a lot of things that we smell that other species might not be able to smell either.
Exactly. It all depends on what kind of receptors you
exactly.
have.
Yeah, so why don't we move on and talk about how we smell with all the receptors and stuff.
You want to go right in? I thought you... Yeah. Did you want to go a bit into how those the volatiles transfer, though?
Well, I mean, there's not much about that. It's just mostly like the volatiles are... Yeah,
they just
float in the air and they go into the air.
I was going to mention that... a lot of volatiles, like you say, they're in the air. So the way that they're actually transported is usually downwind. So the volatiles will be in the wind and they're traveling down. So a lot of species, a lot of insects especially, will orient themselves upwind in order to catch those volatiles and then direct themselves upwind to find the source of that.
Yeah.
And something like a crab in the ocean can do the same type of thing, but with current instead of wind. So the chemicals are in the water current, and then they're able to orient themselves up current in order to find that chemical source.
Yeah, and a lot of organisms use, so that's called chemotaxis when you're following a scent trail. Imagine like a cartoon when you see somebody following the smell of a pie, for example, and they just,
they have the wind trail.
Yeah. So that's called chemotaxis when you're following that order. But almost everything doesn't just follow chemotaxis. We follow different things. We follow, like you said, the wind. Certain insects follow wind direction, so they go upwind regardless of. Not regardless of, but they go upwind when they smell something. They just follow the wind, for example, and the crabs follow the current or go against the current. Yeah.
Yeah, that's called rheotaxis.
And anemotaxis.
And anemotaxis is the wind. Yeah.
We can name all the taxis.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. But yeah, the way that smells are actually perceived is one of those things we kind of mentioned earlier, that olfaction, smelling, is really pretty ancient. A lot of pretty much like across the animal kingdom, the system is very similar, regardless of insect, fish, human. It's all very similar. I mean, there's obviously quite a few differences, but the general system is pretty conserved.
Yeah, we might have different organs, but like you said, the underlying mechanism is very similar between all organisms. Yeah. So yeah, when you get hit by a chemical compound, when you inhale something, we have a layer of mucus covering our olfactory epithelial layer, and the olfactory epithelial layer is. We have nerve endings sticking out of our nose, inside of our nose. Think of it that way, I guess. And these nerve endings have little receptors on them. And each receptor would be able to bind to a specific compound or a specific odor compound. So when you inhale something, those compounds go through your mucus layer. And the mucus layer is important because it protects your receptor cells and keeps them moist. Anyway, so when the compound goes through your mucus layer, the compounds bind to those olfactory receptors, and it causes a depolarization in the nerve cell. So we have nerve cells lining up those parts of our noses, and the depolarization means the nerve cell gets activated and fires a signal to the brain. And when the signal goes to the brain, we have these little glomeruli where the similar nerve cells or nerve cells that smell similar compounds kind of gather together in a certain spot in the brain. And I'm not sure how much I understand about how the brain decides what something smells like.
Well, that's one of the interesting things is that nobody knows. Right now it's pretty not well understood what actually happens after the action potential hits the glomerulus and is carried to the upper parts of the brain. The mechanism of that is really pretty not well understood.
Yeah, I mean, can you even think about how would you study, like what kind of study would you devise to understand how the brain describes the smell?
Man, I have no idea. I mean, there's the thing we do in our lab. I haven't done it. I don't think you've done it, but I know some people in our lab have done it, and it's called calcium imaging.
Right, yeah.
So you can kind of get an idea of where the electrical signal is being transported in the insect brain. But as far as humans, you can't cut somebody's head open and stick some calcium in them and check it out under
even if
microscope.
we do that, though, all that's going to tell us is which part of the brain is smelling which smell.
Which is pretty much already known.
Yeah.
So,
we kind of know that already. You know? But yeah, it's just...
the actual mechanism of interpreting it is... Well, anything with the brain really is incredibly...
I guess,
it's beyond me.
Yeah, it's an out of this world experience for the brain. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So anyways, that's like the basic mechanism of smelling.
Yeah, so you mentioned the glomerulus. Those are really interesting things. Right above our nose, there's something called an olfactory bulb. And so this is just a little organ that houses all these glomeruli. And so as you said before, there's all the cells in our nose, right? And so they're able to pick up these odors. And they're in kind of like a weird mosaic fashion. They're just kind of all over. So these chemical compounds can be picked up anywhere in the nose, as long as there's a receptor for it.
Right.
But as you say, then they're transported to the glomeruli. So the way this works is that this kind of mosaic is then condensed and put into a single group of very similar compounds.
Right. So think of it in your nose as having 20 different colors of each color representing a different nerve all over your nose. Mm-hmm. And then when they go up to the brain, you have different globs of these colors. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that makes sense. But...
I don't know if that helps. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like if you have a bunch of strings just layered out on a table, and then all the strings kind of just feed through into one big thread. So yeah, it's kind of like weaving a bunch of strings together into a rope or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and that's what happens in our noses, I guess.
Yeah.
When you sniff something, you activate a nerve signal, and the nerve signal goes to the brain, and that's transduction, meaning you transferred one kind of signal, the chemical signal being the odor, into a nerve signal. Mm-hmm. And the person to discover that, or it was kind of two persons, what is it, Axel and Buckley? Axel and Buckle in 1991. They discovered the genome or the genetics of the odor receptors, and they won the Nobel Prize for that.
Mm-hmm. A well-deserved Nobel Prize.
Yeah. And so in our genetics, or our genome, in our noses, we have, like we said, different olfactory receptors. And each receptor is coded for by a different gene. So there's, I would say, a receptor that makes us smell lemon. There's a gene that will make us smell lemon. Mm-hmm. And just that one gene. But that gene that smells lemon, or makes us smell lemon, we might be able to use that to smell other things as well. And that's how we're able to smell so many things. We don't have 400 different thousand genes coding for 400 different thousand chemicals. We might have probably maybe 1,000 genes, but each receptor might be able to smell more than one compound. And that's how we're able to smell so many things.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. It's, as we said before, it's a pretty conserved system. It's very similar across other species. Something like an insect, something that's near and dear to our hearts, because this is what we do. Insects are actually quite similar, more similar than you might imagine, because we have a nose. Yeah. We have a nose that we've gone through. We know how that works. But an insect doesn't have a nose. It has antennae.
What?
What is? No nose? That's disgusting. So yeah, they have antennae coming off their head, wherever it may be, small or large. Mm-hmm. And these antennae are covered with tiny, tiny hairs. And these hairs are called scintillae. And scintillae. In plural. Whoa. So these scintillae are the things that they use to pick up and draw in odors. And it's very similar to, say, the nerve cells in our nose that are able to pick up something. Yeah. So these tiny hairs, they have pores in the side that a chemical can be brought in through via proteins, or if it's small enough, or whatever. Because much like how we have a gene coding for a single olfactory receptor, they have scintillae that are that pretty much have just one or two nerve cells in each one. Yeah. So they're very specific for a certain type of compound, just like one of our olfactory receptors are. Right. And they also have olfactory receptors within those scintillae, and then the system is pretty much the same from there. So the compound is brought in to the scintillae, scintilla in singular, falling into my own trap, and it's carried through to the brain, quote unquote, through an action potential in much the same way that a human action potential is brought in.
Yeah, so it's interesting to think of an insect antenna as an inside-out nose. Their nose is their antenna, and it's inside out. They don't have the big schnoz we have. They just have the little hairs. And
I said brain, quote unquote, because whereas we have an olfactory bulb that leads to our upper brain, our higher brain function, they have what's called antennal lobes for the most part. Not all insects do. Something like a dragonfly doesn't have antennal lobes.
They're weak smellers.
Yeah. or may not smell at all.
Yeah.
So they don't have a brain, quote unquote, but they do have brain function. And this antennal lobe is basically just a big collection of glomeruli, which we discussed earlier in the human olfactory bulb. So whereas we have this olfactory bulb that leads to upper brain function, their antennae are directed towards this antennal lobe, which then houses all the glomeruli, condenses the nerve impulse to a single kind of grouping, and then that's carried out through the rest of the body to elicit some kind of behavior.
Yeah, it's also interesting how the smell can elicit some kind of behavior.
Yes.
Because
that's one of the $1 million questions in our lab is because we can find what odors are being able to be picked up by the insect very easily. We can
talk about EAGs for a second here.
Sure,
and
yeah.
See how we can do that.
I can do that, sure, because I've done quite a few EAGs. So basically, what we do with an EAG.
What's an EAG first?
I was just gonna thank you though. It's an electroantennogram. So basically, what it does is it measures the net electrical response of the antenna to a compound. So as we've said, when a compound is introduced to an antennae, there's an action potential, an electrical response that leads to some kind of behavior.
Right.
So what we do with an EAG is we hook up an antennae through very high-tech methods of decapitating insects and sticking them on probes.
Electrodes and all that good stuff.
So we do that, and then we introduce compounds to them, and we see what kind of electrical response there is. And if there's a large electrical response, then we can kind of say, well, there's a certain sensitivity to that compound.
Right.
But the thing with that is that a sensitivity to a compound, it doesn't actually mean that it does anything. It just means that it's able to pick it up in some respect.
Yeah, so we can find out that the insect actually can smell a compound, but it can mean that the insect likes the compound, it can mean that the insect hates the compound, or it can just mean that the insect just smells the compound and doesn't really care.
Because when you think about it, there's a lot of compounds that we smell that, they're just there. It's whatever, I don't care.
The smell of BAC, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
I walk through the BAC, I'm like, alright, cool,
okay.
BAC,
yeah,
sure.
It smells like that. Sure, great. So actually actually finding out a behavioral response from a smell is a whole other bag of tricks that we have to kind of draw into, and it's actually quite difficult to understand the relationship between what a smell is and what a smell will do to an insect or another species.
What it means, because we semiochemicals, back to a chemical that carries a signal. We know that a smell carries a signal, but the real work is when you try to decipher what that signal is, and that's what chemical ecology is all about. Trying to figure out all these signals that are in the air and what they mean. It's almost like trying to catch all these letters. I think of them as written letters, all these chemicals, and try to read them and figure out what they mean. Yeah.
Often that's what it feels like when you're pounding through literature and it's like, oh, alpha this and 10-6
Z3 hexane.
Oh, okay. I'm just gonna skip that word. Hope it wasn't important.
They should. You know what they should do? They should skip all the chemical names and list the compounds by how they smell.
Yeah.
The strawberry orange nectar.
Yeah. This kind of musky, foul-ish smelling, kind of almost mustardy, maybe, question mark? Well, the insect
on a scale of 1
responded.
to 10, I'd say 1 floral,
One floral unit.
I think that'll be easier than Z3, whatever.
That's one of those weird things about odors, is that, we really, it's impossible to describe, and we kind of talked about that earlier, but it's very difficult to describe an odor without calling it another odor. That's pretty much the only descriptive you can have, and I invite anyone who's listening to try and describe an odor without using a different odor. It's quite difficult. Like, it's kind of flowery.
It's impossible.
It's fruity.
It's
nutty. Oily. Waxy.
Earthy.
But it's very difficult.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I know.
So how did we ever get to describe something then when we were young? Or
I don't know. Well, we just learned. It's like whoever the first person was that said that's a citrus.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what? That's why different smells mean different things to people as well. When you're growing up, if you grew up near a bakery, for example, and every time you pass a bakery now, it will remind you of home. Well, for me, if I pass by a bakery, it wouldn't remind me of home, or, it's just different people relate different smells to different things in your legs.
Mm-hmm. And that's a really interesting thing you bring up because, as we all know, smell and olfaction is extremely important to memory. It's one of those things that you smell something and it elicits a memory.
It imprints on your
there's
brain,
something about certain smells that always bring you back to some place. I remember there's a book I read a while back by Aldous Huxley where this lady who's a writer was walking along sorry, that's Loay's fire call. Was walking along a terrace and she smells this flower and it brings her back to her childhood, and he has this whole wonderful chapter about her childhood. And Loay is currently getting a fire call.
No, we're good.
We're good. All right. We're not having to cancel early or have a solo bolo. That would be pretty bad. But yeah, so smell is very important for memory. And one of the things that's interesting is that where smells are processed is in the olfactory bulb. And this is part of the limbic system in the brain. And it's very close to the amygdala. And the amygdala is what's used in the brain for emotional processing. Okay, so it kind of makes sense that close wiring between the olfactory bulb and the amygdala would kind of connect an emotional response to whatever smell. And then also, the olfactory bulb is very close to the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is used in associative learning. Okay. So it's kind of like you connect an odor to a certain thing and to a certain emotional state. And it's not hard to see how those things transfer into a memory. Yeah.
And, a lot of fine dining restaurants now, they use this thing called molecular gastronomy. And they do a lot of experiments with food and the molecular stuff with food. And a lot of them they're trying to do now is like recreate different smells. Say they get some really good mushrooms from a hike. They went on a hike and they tried to recreate the smells from the hike. So they have all these different compounds or mosses or whatever. So when you're eating the plate, you're actually smelling what the hike also smelled like. So you're smelling trees and you're smelling mosses and you're smelling earth while you're eating the mushrooms. And they kind of do that to play with your emotions as well.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty cool. And, say you're eating an Italian dish and they try to put some smells you would smell when you go to Italy, for example.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, something really cool with taste, because taste is also extremely influenced by smell. So in the back of your mouth, the back of your mouth and your nasal passage are actually connected. So chemical compounds that are produced by the food are able to retroactively go into your nasal passage and then again connect with olfactory receptors. So it's really cool that when you're eating, the compounds are actually released upwards into your nasal passage, and then they can be smelled, quote unquote, in the same way that we would sniff something.
Yeah. I know someone who cannot smell or taste.
Really?
Yeah, he did a lot of drywall work and didn't wear a mask, and did a lot of constructions, didn't wear a mask, and just damaged his entire organs.
Oh man, that's sad.
Yeah, so he cannot smell anything. Nothing.
Well, I feel like if you couldn't taste anything, wouldn't you just be able to you just eat so healthily?
I guess, yeah.
I mean,
then you have to be only picky about textures.
Exactly. I mean, you could just eat broccoli all day.
Yeah.
You have no desire to eat cake or
fried chicken.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. It'd be kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would definitely not appreciate losing that. But
yeah. Don't think about that too much. Maybe we'll save that for later.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
So we were talking a bit about memory, and that's really interesting with olfaction because it's really important for a lot of especially migratory species.
Yeah.
A lot of like butterflies, something like the monarch we discussed a long time ago in our episode about seasons, how they might kind of have some kind of marking system to lay down a pheromone, as we discussed, and then pick that up and be able to follow that in some kind of respect to where they want to be. So a lot of species are able to produce pheromones or something like that, kind of like a trail for other things to other species or other individuals of that species to follow.
Yeah, like ants, for example.
Exactly, ants are the classic example. For
a trail I used to love watching ants go on a trail and shake hands.
They go crazy.
Yeah.
But something like a migratory species, like a salmon, they're really interesting because they're able to, so streams have very particular odors, which you might not think about.
Yeah.
A particular stream has a certain set of odors within that stream.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so a salmon that's migrating back to freshwater to spawn, if I'm getting that correct,
That's
I hope I am.
right. It migrates back to freshwater.
Yeah. All right. First year bio. They're able to detect the very specific odors that are produced by that very specific stream from which they were born.
Yeah, and there was a big study done on to prove that point.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they kind of artificially imprinted these smells on salmons. What they did is they released a bunch of salmons in a stream, and they released a specific compound in that stream.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a few years later, when the salmons were about to come back to spawn, they released the same compound that they imprinted on the salmons in the stream, and the salmons followed the route and went back up to where the compound was.
And the cool thing that they did with that too is that to make sure it wasn't just going back to the stream by some other way, is that they actually did it with two groups.
Mm-hmm.
So one group of salmon had this compound introduced to it, and another group of salmon had this other compound. And what they did when they switched the streams. So they introduced the first compound into the second stream and the second compound into the first stream, and they found that the salmon oriented the way that you would expect.
Following the compound,
they followed
the stream.
They followed the compound.
Yeah, but I found it really hard to believe that each stream has a certain compound or a smell.
There's so many streams.
And also the biology around the stream changes so much throughout the year and throughout the time. I just find it very hard to believe that they're following a smell up a stream, Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it probably has a lot to do with like soil chemistry and stuff like that.
But still, it's like running water, and
it's true because those systems are always changing, especially things that are living in them are always changing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's hard. I don't know. You could probably have a good discussion with the guys that did that study.
Yeah, because in their study they say that they proved that the streams have different smells.
Did they say that?
It was one of the things, but they didn't actually study that. They didn't study the chemical composition of the streams. They proved that they have different smells because the salmons kept going back to the same streams and when they did all this stuff. So I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I should read more about that. Maybe they have their reasons, but I have a very hard time believing that.
Well. All we know is that they followed the compound that they were reared with. Yeah. Which is interesting in itself. Yeah. So I think we can all be happy with that.
Fine.
All right. Do you have anything else for memory?
For memory, let's see. Well, we can talk about the lobster and the crab studies they were doing.
Do it. Tell me all about it.
Okay, well, that's not memory. That's more like mating behavior.
That's interesting as well.
Yeah, but I found it funny when the crab was mating with the sponge. So what they did, there's a species of crab, the helmet crab. Not helmet crab. What was
shark crab?
No.
Nope. Okay, nope.
It used.
Oh well.
It's past the winter anyway.
Yeah.
I think it was helmet crab. So helmet crabs, the males find females by smell, and a group of scientists wanted to study how the males find the females. And what they did is they had a female in a tank of water, a bunch of females in a tank of water, and they dipped a sponge in the tank where the females were, in the water, and soaked it for a while. And then they exposed a male crab to that sponge. The sponge has been soaked in the female water. Mm. The male crab came to the sponge and grabbed it and stayed with it for a while and then actually mated with that sponge.
Nice.
So the crab actually, I find it very interesting that the crab didn't even use any other cues other than smell to mate with the sponge. It didn't even try to use any visual cues or tactile cues or anything like that. Just use the chemical cues to mate with the sponge.
Well, that brings us right back to where we were when I talked about alomones. Mm-hmm. How the orchid produced the pheromone for a wasp. Right. And it's
and
crazy. And the wasp will actually try and mate and pretty much in some cases go to completion. Yeah. As a wasp can. With an orchid. And it's as you say, it's absolutely incredible that there's something about pheromones
such a strong driver.
Yeah, so strong. And as far as humans, it's very hotly debated if we have pheromones or not. But
Yeah. I mean, you can go online now and buy attractant pheromones. You know, there's places that advertise, spray this on yourself and go to the bar, and then you'll get all the girls or whatever. Yeah. So there's a bunch of these phony things online. I'm not sure if they're phony or not. But
we'll see.
We don't know. I don't know.
But it's probably just Axe body spray.
Yeah.
What if that was the human pheromone?
Or,
Oh, yeah.
I hope not. I hate Axe.
Yeah. But yeah, that's so. Yeah.
And you know what's even more interesting is that now if you hang out with somebody who doesn't use deodorant or doesn't use any colognes or whatever, some people kind of get disturbed by that. It's like, oh my god, this person is stinky or whatever. But we've only started using deodorant not too long ago, and it's crazy how much our culture changed since we started using deodorants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our original smell as humans is now we hate our original smell as humans. And that's really crazy. Like, we've evolved way quicker than we expected to in that area, I think.
Yeah, I often think about that. It's really weird to think about how everybody used to smell like, rancid BO.
Like themselves, yeah. Like, you smell
and
like
that's
yourself.
that's how humans smell, and
Yeah.
we smell awful.
There's no other way around.
Yeah, when you go to some other animal, you pick up a cat,
Yeah,
you give it a sniff, it's like, oh, that's great, you smell so good.
Yeah.
You go up to a human that hasn't worn deodorant for a week, you just rub your nose in their armpit. You're not loving your life.
It smells like Johnny.
Yeah, not in a good way.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're messing up with our evolution way too hard. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, we've screwed up our evolution in way more ways than just with our smell. Humans are, we've kind of screwed ourselves
crazy.
over.
We got too smart for our own good.
Exactly. How are we looking on time? You just check your watch there.
We got 19 more minutes.
19 more minutes. Okay. Well, I have a couple kind of just interesting compounds.
Okay.
That I thought it would be kind of interesting. There's not many. You probably know a few more off the top of your head, but they might be interesting to people that are listening, just because these are ones that are out there and they're really common.
Okay.
So one of the main ones that we study a lot in our work is called Z3-hexanol, or cis-3-hexanol. This is an alcohol that's produced by grass, especially cut grass. So yeah, that smell that you smell after cutting grass, it's really strong. That's Z3-hexanol. And it's pretty ubiquitous throughout the plant world. It's for any kind of leaf damage, really. So if you just break a leaf off, you're going to release some Z3-hexanol.
Yeah, the smell of green grass.
Yeah, green grass. Green leaf volatile is what green leaf alcohol is one of its common names. It's very ubiquitous and it's very common, and I'm sure you've smelled it. As soon as you smell some cut grass, you're smelling Z3-hexanol.
And we have a lot of it in our lab.
Yep.
When we, I'm not sure if you know the story. When I first started my master's, we had a bottle of Z3-hexanol, and I dropped one in the fume hood on a bunch of stuff. And it was like, 99% pure, and the lab stunk of green grass for like 2 weeks after. Yeah.
Oh, you fool. You foolish fool.
But there's also a lot of other compounds that smell like green grass. There's a bunch of compounds that can't give that green grass smell.
Yep.
Like Z3-hexanyl acetate, hexanels, and a lot of other hexanels and hexanels.
Yep. I just didn't want to, go crazy, but if you want to go crazy,
I'm just putting that out there.
So another one that's very common is called alpha-pinene. This is another one of our favorites, and this is found in the oils of conifer trees. Yeah. So it's, as the name would imply, it's the smell of pine needles. Yeah, so that's alpha-pinene smell. Yeah. Everyone's favorite.
Yeah, I like the smell of merkine too. To me, merkine smells like mango.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. What does it remind you of?
I don't know.
Because merkine is also like
an oaky smell.
Okay. So some hops, beer hops, also have merkine in them. And when I drank Keats has a new beer, and it's I forget what it was called. When I drank it, it reminded me of mangoes. Oh, cool. And then I looked up the hop, and the hop has a lot of merkine in it too.
Oh, very interesting.
So yeah. To me, merkine reminds me of mangoos, and there is a lot of merkine in unripe mangoes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know merkine is pretty prevalent in pine, and it's one of those things that there's invasive species,
pine beetle,
the mountain pine beetle. Merkine is one of the things that it really hones in on and able to find its host of the ponderosa pine.
Yeah.
Another famous smell famous chemical compound. It's called limonene.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
again, as the name would imply, it's found in limes and other citrus rinds.
Citrus, yeah.
So it's a compound that's held in cells in the lemon rind or lime rind, any citrus rind. When you break the rind,
a lot of plants as a defensive compound. You know that, and a lot of chemists in Nicoletta was trying to use limonene as a defensive compound, essential part of essential oils for insecticides.
Well, exactly, because it's held in the rind, and when the rind is broken, it's released as a defensive compound. But we smell it and we say, "Oh my gosh, that's beautiful!"
Exactly, a lot of the smells we smell with fruits and all these like beautiful smells or whatever. They're produced by plants as a defensive compound against other insects
terrified,
or herbivores. Yeah,
because we're about to eat it.
But
we've transferred that. We've evolved to think that's a delightful smell because it's something worth eating.
Yeah, like cabbage and broccoli. Still, I mean, some people might argue that that's a delightful smell, but we still eat them, and they have so much stinky stuff in there.
And there we have our last compound. Dimethyl sulfide.
Ooh.
That's the thing. That's one of the things that is said to smell cabbagey, but it's not actually. I don't think it's actually in cabbage. You would know better.
There is
I'm sure there is then. All right. So dimethyl sulfide is
dimethyl disulfide in cabbage, but yeah.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that's different. So yeah, it's cabbage-like, but it's actually a metabolic a breakdown product from marine algae. So dimethyl sulfide is one of the things that people would say, oh, that smells like the sea.
Yeah.
So when you think of the sea smell, you might be smelling dimethyl sulfide, although that's a bit more rancid. Dimethyl sulfide's a bit grosser than the nice sea smell you have, which is kind of salty.
Yeah. When you fly to the Virgin Islands, there's a huge salt pond right next to the airport. And during parts of the year or parts of the day, it reeks of dimethyl sulfide.
Oh, nice.
And it smells like you're driving in a sewage tank, essentially.
Oh, beautiful.
And a lot of people were like, oh my god, we can't have tourists coming to the island smelling the sewage stuff. Because a lot of people thought it was actually sewage. And then some ecologists were like, no, this is not sewage. This is a very healthy, healthy pond, very healthy smell.
Yeah.
And I love it. Like, when I go back home, that's one smell, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm home now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right on.
It's cool. Yeah.
And that brings you right back to memory.
Back to,
beautiful. Everything's just circling together. And with that wonderful note, we're going to end our discussion of olfaction. And we're going to jump into a Would You Rather game.
Would you rather? Okay, so I have a couple of Would You Rathers here.
Oh, wait, well, just pick one.
But I'll pick one. Okay.
So Would You Rather, we played it last week. We had a lot of fun. Hopefully it was fun to listen to. Luai's going to ask me one question, a Would You Rather question. And I'm going to be able to answer I'm going to be able to ask him a bunch of questions. And I'm assuming he has a correct answer in mind.
Yes, there is a correct
answer.
answer.
There is a correct answer. So hopefully I'll get it based off my questions. So yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, so would you rather have a head the size of a tennis ball?
Okay.
Or not be able to smell for the rest of your life?
Okay.
Smell or taste.
Smell or taste.
Yeah,
okay.
like it's sweet, sour, salty. Yeah.
Do I have supervision? In the case of no smell.
No. You have no overdeveloped senses.
Okay, so I just lose.
You lose a sense.
Okay. In the case of the tennis ball head, is it bouncy like a tennis ball?
Yes.
So
you can bounce your head on the wall. It's very like a tennis ball.
And it's exactly the same as my head.
It's
or is it
exactly the same head.
Okay, exactly. It's just small. So right out of Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
So it's not like a gross shrunken head type thing. It's just exactly the same.
Well, it's round like a tennis ball, though.
Oh, it's round. Okay.
It is like exactly the size of a tennis ball.
Okay.
It's just squished. Things are squished.
Okay.
But you can smell though.
I can smell. Yeah. Do I have any other extra sensory abilities in that one?
You have really big muscles.
I have really big muscles. What?
You can lift things up and put them down.
Okay. Let's see. If I can't smell and I can't taste, and I can see and hear normally, do I... Oh, wow. So, do I have muscles in both of them, or is this just a...
Well, you have to work out a lot in the other one.
Okay. So, which one do I have muscles in?
The tennis ball.
The tennis ball.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Do I... And I have just... Okay. Do I have crappy vision as I do now with a tennis ball? Like, is anything changed? Like...
No, it's exactly the same,
so
but just
my
the head
vision's
is
the same.
a lot smaller.
So... do my glasses change shape along with my head, or do I have to somehow find somebody who's willing to design me
You're
glasses?
gonna have to go to an optometrist.
That's gonna be expensive.
Or maybe contact lenses. I don't know. You have to.
That's still gonna be expensive. My eyes would be tiny.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that's your problem at this moment.
Yeah, I guess so. If I take a picture of myself, is it still a tiny head? It's still a tiny.
It's
So
a tiny
okay,
head.
okay. So it's just there. Okay. Well, is it one of those things that people have gotten used to, or is it weird every time I see
No,
somebody?
you woke up one morning and your head is.
So it's just changed.
You just woke up and it's like.
Just like Kafka's Metamorphosis here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but are people all right with it? Like, is it weird? I guess it would be pretty weird.
Well, it's gonna be pretty weird for a lot of people.
Yeah. Okay.
Your mom might not say anything, but deep inside she'll be like, "Oh my god."
Oh my god.
But yeah, it will be exactly as you would expect people to react to it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. But he's got a great personality. Okay. Let's see. I can't smell.
And you still need to eat the same amount of food through the small.
Oh
amount
my
of food.
gosh.
Yeah, because you have the same body and bigger muscles.
Wow, that would be really hard.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can't taste. Do I have any desire, as we said earlier? Do I have any desire to eat sweet things or?
No, you don't know. You don't know what anything tastes.
So I've never tasted.
No, you've never tasted.
So I've never tasted or smelled anything, and the head thing just happened this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's see. If I can't taste and I can't smell, and everything else is normal, my eyesight still sucks. Do people make fun of me?
They make fun of you more for not smelling or tasting
than they would for the tennis ball?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, because with the tennis ball, I guess people would just kind of be like, "Oh, I can't mention that. Don't mention it. Don't mention it.
Don't look at it. Don't look at it.
Yeah.
Don't look at it."
So I just gotta grin and bear the other, the scent thing. Okay. Do I have a nose?
As a tennis ball?
No, as a nose.
Yeah, you do.
I still have it. It's just
you
not
still have the
working.
nose. You just use it for breathing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If I don't use it, okay. Oh no, yeah, okay. Oh my goodness, now I'm all confused.
I know. I was thinking about that and I couldn't pick one, but I picked one obviously because you're gonna have to pick one.
Yeah.
It was so hard for me because I couldn't. I was like, what if I can't taste anything or smell anything? That's just like that's.
It would make going out to restaurants kind of pointless.
Doing anything pointless. Yeah.
Can't smell anything. Well.
I wonder if you can't smell anything if you'd have the same personality, or the same memories.
I'd probably be a bit grumpier. Memory would probably be quite affected.
Maybe we should do a study on that.
Yeah.
Crazy glue a baby's nose.
Yeah, sure.
As soon as it pops out.
We'll get funding for that. Is the tennis ball thing gonna go away?
No.
No, it's
none
permanent?
of them are gonna go away.
Is there a reason for it, or did it just happen?
It just happened. You woke up one day and it just happened.
Will I ever find true love with a tennis ball head?
If you find a girl that's impressed by your personality, yes.
Okay. What about with no smell?
With no, it's the same.
It's the same?
You have to. Yeah.
You have to. I still have to woo them.
You still have to woo them, and you better pick the right flower that doesn't stick.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Carry on rotten flower stuff.
Oh man, it would be hard to pick out if a food has gone bad or something.
Yeah, like you drink milk and you wouldn't know, you would get sick.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. All right. Well. I think I'm ready for my choice.
Okay.
I think I'm going to choose the no smell.
Okay.
Only because it was from birth, so I wouldn't even know what a smell is. So I would have no baseline of what I'm missing.
You're missing, yeah. Okay.
Which I feel, wouldn't be too bad.
Okay, you know what? You got the right answer.
Oh, yeah, I did.
As much as it is important for me smelling and tasting, I wouldn't, I would find it very hard living with a tennis ball head.
I mean, how would you find a hat that fit?
Oh, yeah. Or sunglasses. Or...
Yeah. All right. Well, now I feel sad. So for the remaining time, we've compiled a couple true or false questions because we've been doing trivia. We figured we'd spice things up a bit. So we got a few true or false questions just to round out the show here. Do you want to start or should I start?
I can start.
Yeah.
I have a really cool one here. There are 14 million insects for every human being on Earth. True or false?
14 million, you said?
Yeah. 14 million for every human being.
Holy cow. Individuals?
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's true.
Okay. Well, the website said it's false.
Okay. There's no follow-up?
But I thought about
you
it.
sounded like you were going to say but. Though.
How many people do you have on Earth right now? 7
like
billion?
7 billion.
So 7 billion times 14 million.
That's a lot of insects.
That's a lot of insects. But for some reason,
I feel like I have that
that's
many in my kitchen, though.
Yeah, for some reason, it seems like that's a normal number.
Yeah.
Like, think about all the ants.
Yeah, I know.
They said that's false because there'll be way too many insects.
But there's so many ants.
We should ask Kirk about that, too.
Oh, yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Alright, keep that one in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. True or false? An English cow has an accent.
An English cow has an accent. I'm gonna go with true.
That is true. They have regional dialects in their moos.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What?
just like birds have regional dialects and humans have regional dialects, cows will have regional dialects as well.
That's insane.
Isn't that wonderful?
That is crazy. Okay, that's pretty cool.
Cockney cow.
Okay, so true or false? You can figure this one out. So, if you look at a planet that's 65 million years... No, if a planet that's 65 million years away from us looks at us now, they'll see us as dinosaurs. True or false?
65 million years.
65 million light years.
Light year?
They're 65 million light years away.
Okay.
They'll see us as dinosaurs if they look at us now.
How long is a light year?
It's exactly a light year.
Thank you.
It's the distance that light travels within a year. That's,
okay, yeah.
So they're 65 million
65 million years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say false.
Okay, no, that's true.
Is it?
Yeah. So if a planet is 65 million years away, million light years away, so they're an X distance away, looks at us now, the light that we're emitting, the light that emitted from Earth 65 million years ago was just reaching them now.
Yeah, but...
So the light that they're looking at is
when did the dinosaurs die?
Well, like 65 million years ago.
I don't know about that.
But anyways, isn't that so cool, though? Like, when you're looking at the sun, you're looking at what the sun looked like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Ha! I just find that so fascinating.
Yeah, no, that is cool. Alright, maybe one more?
Sure, yeah.
And we'll round it up. Okay. Oh, here we go. The first breast implants were for dogs. True or false?
False.
That is true.
What?
Yeah.
Why would you put breast implants on dogs?
I think it was just a test. But the first breast implants, silicone breast implants, were implanted in a dog named Esmeralda.
Man, that's why there's like all these animal cruelty, human rights things.
But come on, that's exactly the name you would expect a dog getting breast implants to have. Esmeralda.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more, and this is a pretty cool
perfect.
one. Okay, so polo mints, you know the mints, the polo mints?
Sure.
They have tribioluminescence, so which means they light up when you break them. True or false?
I'm gonna say true, just because.
Just because it's freaking true,
just because it's so obscure
I want to go buy.
I
know. I want to go buy a pack of those. It said if you go in a dark room and break one in a very dark room, you'll see a spark of light.
Wow.
It's because of all the electrons trapped in the structure or whatever. When you break it, they get released.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
I have my doubts. I want to try it.
Yeah.
But that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's
it for time.
Yeah, that's it for time. That's our episode about olfaction.
Yeah,
hope
maybe
you enjoyed it. Hope you smelled along.
Yeah, keep smelling.
I guess I won't be able to. But
yeah.
But yeah, thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Check out our YouTube archive at youtube.com/user/Fudge the Data, or our Facebook page or our Twitter page, which we still don't really know how to use.
Yeah, and send us any recommendations or suggestions for future shows.
All right, thanks.
Cool, thank you for listening.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.